Howdy. It's been a few months. Sorry about that. To answer the question that no one asked, it wasn't intentional. I actually made 2 relatively large videos on The Office, deep diving the entire series, but both of them got not just copyright claimed, but straight up blocked nationwide by NBC. And after almost 30 attempts to get everything cleared up, there's been no progress, so yeah. If I can't talk about my favorite television show of all time though, I figured it'd be fun to talk about something else I love. Star Wars. I grew up with the prequels, but owned the OT on VHS, and honestly, just saying that makes me feel like I'm a couple years away from driving 20 under the speed limit in the left lane. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is Star Wars played a pretty big part in my life, especially as a child. Hell, even to this day, my favorite video game is still Star Wars Battlefront 2 from all the way back in 2005. And considering the fact that I've recently been on a massive Star Wars kick over on the main channel, the timing just seemed right. Up until writing the script for this video, I'd never actually seen the entirety of Star Wars The Clone Wars. Well, not this one anyway. I still have my half-taped copies of the anime-styled Clone Wars TV show from 2003, but I'm not talking about that one. Instead, we're talking about the one made by this guy. So, having never really seen the show outside of a few bits and pieces throughout the last 10 or 15 years, it was finally time for me to sit down and binge watch the entire series. The format is the exact same as the South Park video. I'll be going through the best and worst rated episodes from each season, according to their IMDb scores, and then throwing in my own opinion on my personal favorite and least favorite episodes as well. Funny enough, unlike the South Park video, I actually agree with most of the lowest rated episodes on this list. Alright, let's get into the video. The first 2 seasons start fairly weak in terms of IMDb scores, with the best episode in Season 1 being Episode 10's Lair of Grievous, with an 8.1 out of 10. Unfortunately, we're already starting out of order, because this is the 3rd and final installment in the Bombad Jedi story arc within Season 1. If you're new to the Clone Wars, or maybe you just get too high to notice while rewatching the show for the 15th time instead of getting a social life, most of the show operates in these 3 to 5 episode story arcs. What I mean by that is each season has some big theme tied to it or some grand story to tell, but within each season, you also have it split up into these 3 to 5 part chunks designed to tell their own story, instead of an episodic format where each individual episode has its own self-contained story. Those still exist, but for the most part, they're few and far in between, at least in the Clone Wars show, and I really like that. Tangent aside, let's talk about the Lair of Grievous. Like I mentioned a few moments ago, it's the finale of the 3-part story that began with Bombad Jedi. All you really need to know leading up to this episode is spit out at you within the first 10 seconds of it starting, so I'll just let them explain.
Viceroy Gunray escapes. En route to Coruscant to stand trial for war crimes, evil separatist leader Newt Gunray has broken free of his Jedi escort. With the help of Count Dooku's sinister agents, the villainous Viceroy has made a daring getaway. Alerted to the bold prison break, Jedi Master Kit Fisto has traced the stolen ship to a remote system, hoping to recapture Gunray and return him to justice.
Alright, we're all on the same page? I imagine most people really like this episode because fan favorite Kit Fisto makes an appearance, and for whatever reason, a lot of the fanbase has this weird attachment to the man, myself included. I love the guy, he's one of my favorite Jedis to exist in Star Wars. I just couldn't tell you why. Anyway, he meets up with his old Padawan Nadar, who's now a full-on Jedi Knight, and the little guy just poofs the fog away, revealing this massive fortress right in front of them. I always love how easily they get inside, too. Like, it takes Kit Fisto maybe 2 seconds of looking at some stone slabs before pressing it and just gaining entrance to the entire compound. One thing I do love about the early seasons as well is that every once in a while, they try going down this horror route. It's light, but I think it still works out really well. For example, in the beginning here, you've got the clones and 2 Jedi walking through these decrepit hallways. It's dark and vacant, and then you hear this shriek and the music starts to pick up as the tension builds. Unfortunately, that's about all you get at the moment though, because the gang quickly discovers a group of droids interacting with what appears to be Newt Gunray. Only for it to be revealed that he was never there, and instead was just using a hologram of himself to bait the Jedi into a trap. As the Jedi and clones explore the base, that horror vibe from the beginning quickly returns. There's statues of a legendary warrior all throughout the hallways, almost like shrines, really. And when they get to the end of the hallway, it all just makes sense.
This is the lair of General Grievous.
Yeah, Kit, we kind of figured that, buddy. For whatever reason, the clones and Jedi just all seem to forget that they're being set up here, even though they literally just talked to Count Dooku and Nute Gunray, and decided to just wait in the lair to capture General Grievous instead, to which I sarcastically retort, if you can't even capture Nute Gunray, how the hell are you going to capture one of the greatest warriors / generals / escape artists in the Separatist army? So Grievous shows up and is immediately surrounded, but he obviously doesn't surrender because, why would he? Which leads to a pretty sweet fight where Kit Fisto literally just cuts Grievous in half. Too bad he's like 99% cyborg and can just monkey bar his way out of the area. I do love how he's just got this little snarky robot doctor on standby though, and all he does is berate Grievous. It's a really good use of comic relief. While the G-Man gets tended to, he reactivates his guards and sends them out to deal with the surviving clones and 2 Jedi. Oh, and by deal with, I mean he drops a clone directly into lava or whatever this shit is. Just like that, we're down to 3 survivors with half an episode to go. So back when Grievous first gets to the compound, castle, fortress, whatever you want to call it, he calls out for Gore, and we're really not sure who that is or what that is. Until now. Turns out, he's just been keeping a fully evolved Rampardos in his basement for an undisclosed amount of time that he then sets free on the survivors.
I do have other things to do.
God, I love that robot. Alright, so Gore kinda just gets absolutely mutilated by the 2 Jedi. It's not even that much of a fight if we're being real. The only downside is the commander gets stone cold stunnered into the ground during the fight, leaving only Kit Fisto and Nadar remaining. Remember how just a few minutes ago there was a mini plot twist with the revelation that Nute Gunray was actually just a hologram the entire time? Well, oh boy, do I got another plot twist for you. As it would turn out, Dooku actually orchestrated this entire setup, allowing the Jedi to break into Grievous's lair, deactivating his guards, all that just to test the general. He does get a bit of a break though, because Nadar, suffering from little man syndrome, tries to take on Grievous and his bodyguards solo, only to be easily defeated after failing to remember that Grievous has 4 arms. At least we get a pretty cool duel between him and Fisto. Seriously, top 10 fight, at least in this series. Obviously being a Jedi Master, Fisto realizes the situation he's in, so he bails out and lives to fight another day. Welcome to the worst episode in the entire series, statistically speaking. Episode 8's Bombad Jedi has an IMDb score of 6 out of 10. I'm not really sure what the logic was here either. Like, you know that almost universally hated character from the prequels? Why don't we make him the focal point of an episode in the first season of our new show? I get that they're kinda loosely playing with the whole Darth Jar Jar meme throughout it, but that only buys you so much screen time. And by that, I mean like 15 seconds, not almost 30 minutes. I also find 3PO to be really annoying, both in the movies and the shows. So when you combine that with a Jar Jar centered episode, it makes me want to drink bleach and snort asbestos. So Padme shows up to her Uncle Anno's system in order to help them, only for Anno to be pissed off that the Republic hasn't helped them enough, revealing that he's taken the Separatists' offer to supply and relieve the planet. The trade-off? Selling out his longtime family friend. Oh my god. So droids attack 3PO and Jar Jar. 3PO is lifted on a big magnet thing and Jar Jar dances with a crab droid.
Oh no, Jar Jar's been killed.
Thank God.
Misa okay.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Jar Jar, having somehow cheated death for like, I don't know, the 50th time, manages to destroy their only ship, but while exploring the wreckage, accidentally opens a closet to find a Jedi robe inside. Look, guys, look, it's the meme. It's look, he's wearing the robe. He's even got the Sith eyes.
We can do it.
Some droids end up seeing him because they're just standing out in the open talking to each other and mistake Jar Jar for a Jedi, understandably. He hides underwater while 3PO surrenders because he's secretly French. Oh, and Padme escapes by herself because strong independent queen who don't need no sand people killing psychopath to tell her what to do. For real though, she's dope as shit in this show. While she's escaping, Jar Jar free climbs a multi-1,000-foot tower. Anno realizes he fucked up and immediately goes crawling back to the Republic. You know, just normal shit. Alright, Here's a continuity question I have. When we first see Jar Jar jump into the water, he loses his robe. He then swims, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of feet away, and somehow just appears with it back on. How the fuck did he get it back? And then also, how did he keep it on while scaling a wall and then pull off the same move twice? Also, where did the robe go in this shot? It was literally just there. And don't even get me started on the fact that a super battle droid fires a heat-seeking missile at Jar Jar. It tracks him underwater and is closing in on him. Jar Jar swims around a corner to see the next 1,000-pound sister, and suddenly the missile is just gone. It was less than a foot away from him, and now it's MIA. Come on, Dave, get your shit together. It does eventually come back, just, like 20 or 30 seconds later. Oh, and how does the robe reappear hundreds of feet? I'm never letting this robe shit go. How does it reappear hundreds of feet away from the initial fight? You're telling me, with a straight face, that droidicas, super battle droids, and B-1 battle droids all fired at the man's feet instead of his face, chest, legs, shoulders, literally any other body part, and Jar Jar managed to happy feet his way around every single blaster bolt? I have no words. Jar Jar summons Tammy Slayton to finish off the droids because they're best friends now, and it even manages to destroy Gunray's ship, resulting in his capture. What an episode. God, it is so therapeutic to dunk on shitty Star Wars content. I know it's like the popular thing to do now, but I promise I'll limit it to the bad episodes because I do really enjoy the show as a whole, so don't panic. It's not like this for every episode. It's time to talk about my personal favorite, episode 21, Liberty on Ryloth. This is another three-parter, with Liberty on Ryloth completing the story arc as it follows Mace Windu capturing the capital city, currently being used as the Separatist operating base. My reasoning for it being my favorite is mainly due to 2 points. First, I love battles in Star Wars. Above all else, show me some massive battles happening with cool cinematics and explosions, and I'm fully bought in. Just give me Michael Bay Star Wars, and I'll die happy. And Ryloth is the first major battle to scratch that itch in the series for me. The second point is a bit darker. I feel like a lot of the overtly violent parts of war, spanning outside of just the chaos of battle, is fully omitted from Star Wars to keep it more child-friendly. A lot of the brutality, torture, and darker components of war are mentioned briefly by some characters in passing, or happen entirely off-screen. Until now. And it's something that the Clone Wars as a show really portrays very well throughout all 7 seasons. There really is a lot to like with the Clone Wars as a show, with most of the attention going to storytelling or just providing stories that show that clones are more than just that, clones. But one thing I don't think is ever really talked about is the darker side of war, and it's something that I think the show does exceptionally well, and so I wanted to talk about it. The big one for me is how, for the Separatists, they typically operate under a "if I can't have it, no one can" philosophy, which is on full display on Ryloth. The clones and Jedi are seemingly outwitting General Tambor, causing Dooku to tell Tambor to retreat and destroy the civilian villages surrounding the city in an attempt to make an example out of the planet. I think most people are expecting the clones and Jedi to thwart that plan at the last moment, but that's not what happens. Instead, you just sit back and watch dozens of cities get carpet-bombed out of existence by Separatist forces. To my knowledge, it's the first time in the show where you see blatant war crimes like this happening on screen. Seeing this happen, the Freedom Fighters end up joining forces with Mace Windu, and together, they assault the city, forcing the droids to retreat. Due to his stubbornness and unwillingness to accept that defeat, Tambor is left behind and forced to surrender, resulting in the Separatists losing one of their top generals. Remember how I was just saying how my favorite aspect of Star Wars is just this idea of these large-scale battles? Like, if they could just somehow take 2017 Battlefront 2's Galactic Supremacy and put it in a show or movie, they'd have to check me into rehab to get me away from it. Well, that's really what Episode 5's Landing at Point Rain is. Coming in at an 8.2 out of 10 on IMDb, it's the highest rated episode of Season 2, and my personal favorite as well. Originally, I was considering taking Episode 8's Brain Invaders, which is basically just Star Wars meets RFK Jr. brainworms, It's a really cool expansion on that horror style I mentioned in Season 1 with some clone zombies, but landing at Point Rain takes the cake over it for me. The only downside with this episode is the fact that we have to see more of Ki-Adi-Mundi's dumbass as he tries to find more ways to pretend the Sith don't exist. So the Republic is invading Geonosis again, but this time, it's being spearheaded by Anakin, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and this dipshit. Not only are they here to destroy all of the droid factories, but specifically, they're trying to capture Poggle the Lesser, which, hold on, what a brutal name. Imagine everyone you know and don't know referred to you all the time as the Lesser. But yeah, they're launching this massive invasion that I'll let Obi-Wan explain real quick because he's leading the effort.
Seems he's holed up at the primary droid foundry here. The factory is protected by a shield generator. Anakin, Ki-Adi, and I shall attempt a three-pronged attack through their defense lines to a staging area just short of the shield. Once we have landed, we shall knock out the shield generator. That is our primary target.
So basically, they're sending 3 generals at 1 shield generator to ensure that Geonosis can't regain its strength. Cody also comes in and gives a more in-depth breakdown, but that's boring. Let's just get to it. I don't know why, but this always reminds me of that intro from the Modern Warfare 3 mission Goalposts, where it just shows all of the American forces assaulting a city, but instead of red, white, and blue patriotism, it's clone gunships. Still just as satisfying though, if you ask me. Like, just watch some of these shots, it's awesome. You've got the landing cruisers being escorted by bombers and fighters, there's dogfights happening, no Michael Vick, artillery going off, it's pure chaos.
Good luck, General.
There is no such thing as luck.
Oh, shut the fuck up, dude. Just say thanks and move on. God, I can't wait for Revenge of the Sith. I hope he knows that no one plays as him in the OG Battlefront 2 Heroes vs. Villain fights on Mos Eisley. No one. Back to the battle. There's ships going down, anti-air guns firing, cool guys don't look at explosions is playing faintly in the background. It's just an incredible scene. And then the infantry lands, and you've got Geonosians on what might as well be the Star Wars equivalent of an MG-42. I love everything about this sequence. Just from a dumb idiot's perspective, it's got everything I want. I know it's artificial drama because we all know Obi-Wan survives the Clone Wars, but I do like the idea that most of the gunships are shot down, leaving both Mundi and Obi-Wan injured and effectively removing them from the battle. Over to Anakin, Ahsoka, and Rex. They're busy just suicide charging the flat guns while Waxer and Boyle, 2 clone soldiers, sprint through no man's land to rescue Obi-Wan and a clone survivor. General Kenobi gets injected with a used needle, and they kinda just expect me not to bring that up, but that's fine. Back to Anakin's group. They're pinned down in front of this massive wall covered almost entirely by turrets. While they work their way through that mess, Moonface Mundi takes his clone soldiers on a nature hike through the hills. Considering all he can do is...
All I can do is trust my instincts.
I'd say they've got about 15 seconds before they're all gunned down, or worse. See? Told ya, right there. Alright, it was actually 30 whole seconds later, but the point still stands. I swear, one day they're gonna retcon that he was actually a Sith sympathizer the entire time and was really just a double agent, because all this dude does is fuck up repeatedly. Wanna see what a real leader looks like? How about Anakin and Ahsoka sprinting through cannon fire, scaling this massive wall of turrets, and taking on all the droids on top of it? There's a quick line here where Anakin asks how many droids Ahsoka's killed so far, and it reminds me a ton of Legolas and Gimli in the Lord of the Rings movies, where they're constantly competing for the highest kill count. Alright, so far I've dedicated an entire page of this script to just this episode alone, and we're just past the halfway point. Hopefully you can see my point though. It's a fantastic episode, and honestly, I think it should just be in the upper 8s or even lower 9s for a score. It's a full-scale invasion, and I could watch it on repeat for hours. Fast forwarding ahead though, you get Mundi's clones pulling the old Pacific War strategy of just burning out the Geonosians with flamethrowers. Sergeant Roebuck would be so proud. Anakin and Mundi's forces link up and begin making their way towards Obi-Wan, who's the only one in the group to reach the landing zone. He's since circled the wagons and formed a defensive perimeter by using the gunships as protection. Now the Geonosians are way too busy doing drive-bys on their speeders to actually engage the clones, only for them to be carpet bombed back to the dust and dirt as Anakin and Mundi arrive. I've said it like 5 times now, but it's a fantastic episode. One of my favorites in the series for sure, and I think it deserves way more credit for what it is. A badass Star Wars episode. Of course, after something as awesome as landing at Point Rain, we have to follow it with the lowest score of the season, Episode 15's Senate Murders. Hot take? This episode isn't all that bad. I actually was pretty surprised to see it at the bottom, but I guess I can understand why, considering it's also my least favorite episode in Season 2. In terms of entertainment, if landing at Point Rain is the pinnacle of the Clone Wars show, Senate Murders is the exact opposite. It's a slow-paced episode with a few small fight scenes, if you want to call them that, kind of scattered throughout. It's also very heavy on the political side of things, focusing, as the title suggests, largely on the Senate itself. You have Padme speaking in front of the Galactic Senate, pushing for less clones to be created in an effort to minimize the conflict, opting to focus on diplomacy instead. She seemingly wins over the Senate in her speech, except for this guy who, just look at him. He calls Padme unpatriotic, and the two have a civil Twitter argument before Padme walks away to go get hammered with her friends. So what they're going for early on here is to set up this idea that some of the senators are toying with this idea of potentially either framing Padme and her allies as separatist allies, or the fact that they actually believe it. I'm not 100% sure which is true. But I can't help but feel like it'd carry way more weight if this was one of Padme's friends leading the charge, since we already know that Padme's loyal to the Republic. I think it'd be a bit more suspenseful if we didn't already know that Hero is good. There is a small twist here though, because Anno's the one that ends up being poisoned, but the Kaminoan who antagonizes the group checks the drink bottle before talking to everyone, implying that Padme's enemies in the Senate may be trying to assassinate her. But yeah, Anno's dead. Remember that senator? The one who sold out his people in Bombad Jedi back in Season 1? Well, since a senator was murdered, the Republic dispatches this dork to track him down. He goes on to talk for over 2 minutes just to explain that Anno was murdered. I'm not kidding. That's literally what it is. But because she just watched her friend die in front of her, Padme wants to delay the vote, effectively giving in to what the opposition clearly wants in order to conduct her own investigation. Also, I get it's Padme and she's a certified badass, but she is a highly targeted senator in the Galactic Republic. If one of her closest allies and friends was just assassinated, why are they just letting her walk around doing whatever she wants without a single bodyguard? Like, even if you're not going to assign her a Jedi or some clones, they're not even going to give her any Naboo guards from her home planet? Instead, she's just going to confront people and accuse them of killing Anno with no real backup? Okay. Anyway, the warmongers reveal that Anno had a secret meeting with someone on the docks the night before, and when Padme goes to investigate, she's almost shot and killed herself because, again, no planning, no backup, just vibes.
Which you naturally brought to me straight away so I could investigate, only... No, wait, you did the exact opposite of that.
Honestly, I'm on this guy's side. So, Anno was this lady's mentor. She makes a passing comment about it after his funeral early on in the episode, which made me think right away that she was the killer, because that's just something that Star Wars tends to ride with. That suspicion was further solidified when she comes storming in and says that Senator Brittani jumped her. That was the Kaminoan senator from early on. Shortly after Brittani is arrested, it's revealed that the poison used on Anno only affects Rodians. Rodians? That sounds right, Rodians. It only affects Rodians, which prompts a realization that if that was true...
Lolo would have died too.
What?
She's Rodian.
Well, look who got it right. I don't want to say I told you so, but, While she throws the entire plot to monologue in front of Padme, Detective Dork activates some droids that distract Lolo, allowing Padme to knock her unconscious in a single punch. It's a short-lived victory though, as due to Anno's death, there aren't enough votes for Padme's bill to pass, meaning the manufacturing of new clones will continue, drastically handicapping any diplomatic solutions. Again, I don't think it's the worst episode in the series or anything like that. Actually, far from it. But as I've established, I'm watching the Clone Wars for the cool action-packed fights and the clone-centric plots. I don't really care about the political side of things when I already know how it ends. But that's just me. Onward to Season 3. It should come as no surprise that the best episode in Season 3 is part of the Mortis trilogy, with Episode 17's Ghost of Mortis coming in at an 8.9 out of 10. The earlier 2 episodes in this story arc also come in at an 8.9 and 8.6, and while the 2 of them are both 8.9s, I prefer Ghost of Mortis over Overlords. So what is Mortis? Well, allow me to quickly recap the first 2 episodes. So, Overlords. It's the first episode of the 3-part story arc. Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka investigate this 2,000-year-old distress code, only to get sucked into this giant crystal thing. They wake up in an unfamiliar world known as Mortis. Think of it like the Force Purgatory, I guess. There's 3 beings here, the Father, Son, and no, not the Holy Spirit, but the Daughter. Close though. All of whom are basically Force gods. Daughter represents the light side, the Son represents the dark side, and Father acts as the balance between the two. All 3 of them think Anakin is truly the chosen one, though. A bunch of weird shit happens here, like Obi-Wan seeing Qui-Gon's Force ghost, Anakin is visited by his mother Shmi, appearing as an apparition, and Ahsoka gets a vision from older, wiser Ahsoka, telling her to get the fuck away from Anakin because he's gonna do a bad. Anakin wakes up the next morning and has to undergo a weird trial to prove he's the chosen one. That trial being he has to choose to save either Obi-Wan or Ahsoka, but instead, he just kind of uses his Force powers to best son and daughter, saving both his mentor and Padawan. You also get a really cool part here where the Imperial March plays as Anakin walks back toward his ship at the end of the episode. This brings us to the second episode, Altar of Mortis, where the trio are prepping to leave, only for Anakin to have another dream where he finds himself right back on the planet. The Son tries to entice Anakin to join the dark side. He refuses, so instead, Son kidnaps Ahsoka and ends up biting her, which turns her to the dark side. Dun dun dun! Right after that, Son tases Father, but doesn't kill him. Anakin ends up finding Ahsoka, and the two duel it out, before Son ultimately achieves his goal of obtaining a Force blade thing, after which he just taps Ahsoka on the head, draining her life force and instantly killing her. No! But if there's one thing I've learned from Disney Star Wars, it's that somehow, plot-important characters will always return. Anyway, the Son goes to stab the Father, only for the daughter to jump in front and sacrifice herself. As she's about to die, daughter gives the rest of her life force to Ahsoka, reviving her but killing herself in the process. With daughter now officially dead, the balance in the Force is all fucked up, so the 3 Jedi head out to find the Son. That's my super quick sum up of what happened, but honestly, I'd suggest just watching the episodes. It's widely regarded as one of the best story arcs in the show, if not the best, and it's a really cool way to continue expanding on what the Force is. So, Ghost of Mortis. Like I mentioned earlier, it's the final episode in the Mortis story arc, and my personal favorite. It kicks off with the 3 Jedi trying to repair their damaged ship, before Anakin heads off to see the Father, as he's not convinced that the Son will be contained here without his help. All of which is practically reaffirmed by the Father. His best course of action is...
the Force will decide.
Glad to see the Casey Anthony approach is still in play after all these years. Anakin ends up coming across Qui-Gon's Force ghost, which just keeps hanging out watching everything in the background. Father seeks out Obi-Wan to tell him that everything relies on Anakin, and that there's nothing that anyone can do. They just need to let the will of the Force take shape, which is code for Anakin's gonna do another bad. Anakin goes on to confront the Son, only to be shown a glimpse of his future, where he sees himself slaughtering kids, blowing up planets, and then a big-ass cloud apparition of Darth Vader's mask pops up behind him. It's a really cool shot in the moment. After all of this goes down, though, you get this moment between Anakin and the Son, where Anakin seemingly gives into the dark side and appears to join forces with him. Obi-Wan shows up a few moments later to see Anakin rocking the Sith eyes. The two incapacitate Obi-Wan and leave him for dead in the Well of Darkness, or whatever cryptic shit they call this place, though he's still able to warn Ahsoka of what's coming. She ends up sabotaging the ship before Anakin can take off, and escapes into the night. Now back at the ship, Father confronts Anakin, telling him that nothing is set in stone and that the future can change at a moment's notice. He then does this little forehead tap straight out of Kung Fu Panda, which causes Anakin to forget everything. And while Father does that, the Son breaks into the crypt and steals the Force dagger off of the daughter's body. Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Anakin all reunite in time to try to fight the Son, only to be easily defeated because, Force God. Seeing that his son has truly fallen to the dark side, Father decides to stab himself with the dagger. It comes as a shock initially, but luckily he's able to give a giant exposition dump before dying, where he explains that the son and father's strength are actually tied together. So with the father dead, the son is actually weakened enough for Anakin to sneak up behind him, stabbing him through the chest with his lightsaber. And just like that, the father, son, and daughter are all killed off, and technically, balance is restored to the Force. Father tells Anakin that he is the chosen one, and poofs away into Force God Heaven, or something. The Force powers keeping Mortis in balance all dissipate, and a massive explosion kicks off. When everyone wakes up, they're back on the ship, and only a few seconds have passed, though it's been days, if not weeks, that the trio were on Mortis together. I feel like there are probably entire videos that should be dedicated to just this Mortis storyline, so maybe I'll do that in the future, but for the sake of this video, I tried to keep it a bit shorter because we still have like 15 episodes to go. Speaking of more episodes, it's time for the lowest rated episode of the season, and my personal least favorite. Episode 8's Evil Plans, with a 6.2 out of 10 on IMDb. Why is it so low? Well, it's mainly due to the fact that it's an R2-D2 and C-3PO centered episode. So there's this massive party being thrown for one of the senators, and everything needs to be perfect because he's the deciding vote on this huge bill that Padme is presenting, and as you all know, the best way to solidify votes in a Senate is to bribe the politicians involved. There's only one big problem. They're missing the fruit piece to go at the top of the dessert. Anakin sends 3PO and R2 on a mission to the markets in order to purchase another Jogan fruit. It just so happens that the world's coolest bounty hunter, Cad Bane, is just hanging out waiting for both droids because reasons. While on their way back to the party, R2 is distracted by a droid spa and 3PO is kidnapped by Bane's little robo buddies. Now back at Bane's lair, 3PO is tortured while the bounty hunter searches for whatever information he has on him, which is practically nothing. Only 3PO lets it slip that R2 is actually the one who has all the info. Bane sends his droids out to retrieve R2, but he's everyone's favorite little astro droid and is able to escape into the alleyways, only to give himself up when he overhears that Bane will destroy 3PO if they can't find R2. So, R2-D2, in an effort to save C-3PO, gives himself up, in turn, creating the largest potential data breach in the galaxy. Friendly reminder, R2's memory has never been wiped, which is why he's so damn important throughout everything involving Star Wars. Think of all of the sensitive information he's holding on to. Hell, there's even a whole episode dedicated to Anakin going out in search of R2 after he's lost in space specifically for that reason. Now, Bane has him captured with all the data he can ask for at his disposal, and all he does is swipe Senate floor plans? Okay. After all that data is farmed off R2, Bane wipes both their memories and sends them back to the party. So just to recap, R2-D2, in an effort to save 3PO, gives up floor plans to the Senate, which are then sold to Jabba the Hutt, who then rehires Cad Bane to break into the Jedi Senate to rescue Zero the Hutt. It feels like they whiffed on a massive potential episode here, or maybe that's just me though. It's time for a palate cleanser. Episode 2's ARC Troopers is my personal favorite episode in Season 3. One of my favorite story arcs in the Clone Wars is Domino Squad. They're first introduced back in Season 1, Episode 5's Rookies, but Season 3 expands on the squad some more. Hell, the first 2 episodes in Season 3 are Clone Cadets, which is all of Domino Squad in their training on Kamino, and then ARC Troopers, which follows the remaining 2 soldiers of Domino Squad, Echo and Fives, as they defend their homeworld from a separatist attack. General Grievous and Ventress are planning an attack on Kamino to destroy the clone DNA room and barracks. The attack plan is actually pretty cool as a concept. General Grievous launches a small-scale space assault, allowing a few of his transport ships to be destroyed just above the cloning facilities. As the debris falls into the water, it's then rebuilt into assault crafts by Ventress's forces who are hiding out underwater. Sensing that something is off, Obi-Wan heads underwater to confirm his suspicions of what's happening. He is able to escape, and thus, the assault on Kamino officially begins. Echo and Fives, again the remaining soldiers from Domino Squad, are on the ground to assist the clone defenses and are told to take up sniper positions as the droids prepare to assault the hangar. Somewhere, there's a Planned Parenthood protester cheering incessantly. Anyway, the battle rages on and the clones are starting to be overrun. They're losing the hangars and exterior positions as both Grievous and Ventress push in on their forces. 99, a defective clone, is trying to help out, only to be berated by the commander in charge of defenses. The droids clearly take pity on the man and choose to dome the commander as payback. It's a bit crazy to see the droids steamrolling the clones, only for the shot to pan over to Echo and Fives just holding their own against like 50 Aqua droids. 99 comes by to bring the duo ammo, and even saves the day by alerting the clones to a bag of grenades they can use. Through the smoke, a small group of cadets appear, causing Echo and Fives to change plans in an effort to protect the children. They were en route to the barracks, which is currently under attack by Grievous, Ventress, and their droid forces. That's gotta be one of the dopest fatalities ever. It feels like it was stripped straight out of a Mortal Kombat scene. It's during all this chaos that the true plan is revealed. The Separatists aren't here to destroy the clone DNA, they're here to steal the clone DNA. Gross. Anyway, Echo, Fives, and 99 bring the clone cadets to the barracks, only to run into Commanders Cody and Rex. The two commanders, along with Echo and Fives, recruit the child soldiers into action, with 99 unlocking the armory to equip everyone. You know, I always forget that Shaak Ti is on Kamino and is also a Jedi Master. The only real thought I ever have of her is that deleted scene in Revenge of the Sith where she's executed by Grievous. This is really her only scene here, so back to Anakin. He finds Ventress in the DNA chambers and engages her, while the clones grab some gear from the barracks and engage the droids occupying the area.
Too easy.
Define easy, General.
Oh shit, here we go. What follows is about 3 minutes of uninterrupted lightsaber duels and explosive combat between Anakin and Ventress, Kenobi and Grievous, and the Coney 2012 clones, and I love every second of it. The clones actually do something really cool here to keep the children out of the riskier fighting. Cody, Rex, Echo, Fives, and 99 use themselves as bait to draw the bulk of the droid forces into the sleeping chambers. With the focus on them, the droids walk right beneath the rescued cadets who are positioned up in the bunks waiting to ambush. When the soldiers do run out of grenades, 99 jumps up to go get more instead of trying to think of a more tactical way to go about this, and is subsequently gunned down. You gotta hand it to him though. The man takes like 6 blaster bolts before going down. Just out here tanking damage for the love of the game. Echo and Fives do try to cover him, but there's simply too many droids. Throughout the facility though, the clones are beginning to turn the tides and push back the droids, resulting in Grievous fleeing. Ventress tries to escape with the clone DNA, but the clones manage to intercept it. Instead of surrendering though, she just sorta hardcore parkours her way onto Grievous's escape shuttle, securing a victory for the clones on Kamino. Due to their outstanding poise in the battle, Echo and Fives are both promoted to ARC Troopers, hence the title of the episode. Surely nothing bad will happen to them throughout the remainder of the series, right? Season 4 features the first and second 9s of the series. Episode 10, Carnage of Krell, comes in at a 9.3, and episode 22, Revenge, with a 9.1. For this portion though, I'll be solely focusing on episode 10's Carnage of Krell, which once again has a 9.3 out of 10 on IMDb, making it the highest rated episode in the series thus far. And deservingly so. It's the final episode in a 4-part story arc covering the assault and subsequent battles on Umbara. In my personal opinion, it's a top 5, maybe even a top 3 story arc in the show's entire catalog. So here's the backstory going in. The Republic is invading the planet of Umbara. Not only are they fighting the Separatists, but they're also fighting the local militias and inhabitants, who tend to kick the shit out of the clones at every turn. About halfway through the first episode, after surviving the initial engagement, Anakin, who has been leading the 501st, is recalled back to Coruscant by Chancellor Palpatine. Filling in for him is Jedi Master Krell, who hates the clones. Throughout the next 2 episodes in the story arc, Krell continues to order Rex to pull off these impossible missions with horrible battle plans, oftentimes just straight up charging into enemy fire in order to take positions, instead of employing any strategy or basic tactics. This, in turn, inflicts very heavy casualties on the 501st, shaking the clones' trust not just in Master Krell, but the Jedi Order and their leadership as a whole. During this predicament, ARC Trooper and the sole survivor of Domino Squad, Fives, devises his own plan to win a battle by using captured Umbarian starfighters, directly refusing an order from General Krell to assault the position head-on, yet again. While Fives' plan does actually work out and the clones are victorious, Fives is immediately court-martialed and scheduled to be executed for treason by General Krell. That's the SparkNotes version you need going into the episode, but again, I'd highly recommend you just go back and take an hour tonight or whenever you're free and watch this whole arc, because it really is one of the best in the show's catalog. The start of the episode kicks off with Krell saying there's no time to court-martial Jesse and Fives, and instead, he wants them to be prepared for execution immediately. This obviously troubles Rex, and it's something he struggles with throughout not just this episode, but the entire story arc really, as his clones are looking to him to lead, only to be met with seemingly blind loyalty to the Jedi Master in charge. The duo are lined up in front of a cloned firing squad, but just before they shoot, Jesse makes a case that they are men, not droids, and they should be trusted to make the right choices, only for the order to be given anyway. As it would turn out though, the clone firing squad defy their orders, intentionally missing their shots, and then they throw their blasters down. As Krell is chastising Rex for not executing the clones, he receives a transmission from a clone trooper saying that the Umbarans have ambushed a clone platoon, having stolen clone armor and are now blending in with other troopers. Krell orders the clones to head out in a search party for the enemy. They inevitably find themselves in a massive shootout with an unknown force, perceived to be the Umbarans in clone armor. The two forces clash in the dark, blindly firing at one another and calling in artillery on their positions. Both sides sustain heavy casualties, and it's not until Rex finds himself investigating 2 bodies that he discovers the truth.
What?
Rex meets with Waxer, the other platoon leader, and the two come to the realization that they were both given orders by Krell to attack each other, with both sides being told the opposing platoon was wearing clone armor as a disguise. I didn't know where to put this in the script, but Waxer is actually one of the clones who rescues Obi-Wan from the landing at Point Rain episode from the attack on Geonosis back in like season 2. Sadly, he ends up dying, leaving just Rex in charge. Now, if you still aren't catching on here, General Krell forced 2 clone platoons to attack each other in an attempt to wipe out as many clone forces as possible. Rex rounds up the clones and proposes they all arrest General Krell under treason against the Republic.
It's treason then.
Oh, he said the line. He said the line, guys. He did it. He did the thing. The crazy thing here is that Krell just straight up admits to all of his actions before whipping out 2 double-sided lightsabers and just going to town on all the clones sent to arrest him. Krell even manages to escape with relative ease and goes on to wipe out dozens of other clones in his escape attempt. It really makes you wonder how Order 66 actually worked when you have a single Jedi Master taking on 2 separate platoons and demolishing them. He ends up retreating into the forest and begins ambushing the clones at every chance he gets. The entire time, he's admitting that he's been using the clones to inflict as much damage to their cause as possible. I really don't understand how you kill this dude. He's a better General Grievous who can also use the Force. Oh, that's how. Yeah, I say that, but even then he still manages to almost escape. Again. Once he's awake, the clones, led by Rex, visit Krell in the brig, where he, once again, flat out admits that he's been slaughtering the clones to serve his own best interests in an attempt to become Dooku's new apprentice. During this whole debacle, it's revealed that the Umbarans are on their way to the 501st position, It seems inevitable that they will recapture this current location, at which point Krell will be freed and will turn over all information, which means there's only one option left for the clones.
On your knees.
Now Rex does end up getting cold feet here, but thankfully Dogma regains his honor and fires the shot. I haven't mentioned Dogma yet, but he's the guy who commanded the firing squad in the beginning of the episode, and even tried to arrest Rex before they approached Krell. He's mentioned very briefly in the first episode of this story after Anakin and Rex take control of the Ridge. All they say is that he's a loyal soldier though, it's nothing too crazy. That being said, it's still a nice little character arc for him where he's able to redeem himself and be the one to kill Krell after getting manipulated by him for the entire story arc on Umbara. With Krell executed, Rex's team evacuates the area where it's revealed that Umbara has been liberated by the Republic. The clones have won, but their trust has already been lost. What an absolutely fantastic story. Can't wait to follow it up with 2 full episodes of droid shenanigans. Well, I say follow up, but I'm actually talking about the 2 episodes that take place directly before Umbara. Episode 5's Mercy Mission is the lowest rated episode in the season, and comes in at a 6.1 out of 10. It's the first of a 2-part story following C-3PO and R2-D2 as they go on a series of mini adventures while exploring the underground world and why. At this point, we're about halfway through the show, and you can really start to see the trends beginning to form. For example, if an episode is centered around the Force or is action-packed, it's generally considered one of, if not the top episode of that season. If it involves a heavy dose of the Senate, or if C-3PO plays a prominent role, it's regarded as one of, if not the worst episodes of that season. You can see it in Season 1's Bombad Jedi, where the majority of the plot is C-3PO and Jar Jar on a diplomatic mission. Then in Season 2, you get an entire episode centered around a bill that Padme proposes and a murdered senator. Moving back to Season 3, it's a C-3PO and R2 episode as the worst, and now once again in Season 4, we have another 3PO and R2 episode coming in as the lowest rated, and yet again, my personal least favorite as well. To make matters worse, this episode just doesn't fit the show. It comes off as filler more than anything, starting with the fact that in a show titled The Clone Wars, this episode is centered around a planet whose population is dealing with earthquakes. So the Republic sends relief efforts down to the planet to help them. I'm not even kidding, that's literally what they tell you in the intro. Just listen.
Global crisis. The mid-rim planet of Aline is devastated by catastrophic earthquakes. As the people struggle, the future of the survivors rests on their ability to rekindle a way of life from the rubble of the past.
Like, alright, for whatever reason, R2 and 3PO just happened to be aboard this ship because the clones needed a translator droid. The locals mention the gods that are living below them, which then prompts an aftershock from the earthquakes the civilians are experiencing. Anyway, the clones get to work helping the civilians with repairs, setting up temporary hospitals and kitchens in the city, while working to get their communications back online as well. During this process, though, the villagers manage to bait R2 and 3PO into some weird tunnel hundreds of feet deep. While navigating the cavern, the two of them discover this massive underground swampland. There's these weird little pixie things, sentient trees, it's a whole ordeal. I'm gonna be real honest, guys. I really do not give a shit about this episode. So instead of talking about it for the next 5 minutes, I'm just gonna tell you the culprit and why everything dies down here. It's air. Air is poison. That's it. The air is poisonous to the creatures that live down here, unless it goes through a filtering process. So instead of telling the droids how they can help, this chick just gives them a riddle to solve. As it turns out, the entire episode is chalked up to one giant misunderstanding. The locals above ground cannot breathe the deadly fumes created in the underworld, while the underworld inhabitants cannot breathe the air above ground as it's also deadly to them. So when a breach opens up, neither side can close it because they all die. Hey, what a great story for a show about the Clone Wars. It's time to talk about an episode that I personally love. Darkness on Umbara. I know we already talked about Umbara, but this is the first episode of that story arc, and it's, in my opinion, the coolest battle sequence in the entire series. The Umbarans have sided with the Separatists, so while Obi-Wan and Krell target the capital city, Anakin and the 501st's job is to deal with the Umbaran reinforcements in the north. So, Umbara. It's covered in darkness and this really dense layer of fog, making the enemy nearly impossible to spot until they're already shooting at you. In customary Umbara fashion, the local militia greets the clone forces with a warm welcome, resulting in a hot landing zone similar to Geonosis. Alright, I'm going to try and show a few scenes of this battle because, to me, it's some absolute masterclass work. If I just skip ahead to the next sentence, they'll got copyright claimed, in which case, go watch them for yourself. We're talking about what is essentially 3 to 4 minutes of non-stop action, and I am all the way here for it. Their initial goal is to take the ridge that the Umbarans are posted up at. Not only is it heavily defended though, but the clones also have to keep an eye out for these light versions of Sarlacc pits, littered throughout the plains. After several minutes of fighting, the clones think they've established a safe foothold and take a few moments to rest, completely unaware that the Umbarans have maneuvered behind them and are waiting to ambush the entire platoon. They also use these weird little scorpion bugs that come equipped with their own special tasers. After spending about half the episode fighting to take the ridge, Rex and Anakin agree to retreat away from it in case the incoming artillery overshoots and hits their position. This turns out to be an excellent call as the entire ridge is practically leveled in the resulting barrage. With the first battle won, the 501st regroup to find that Jedi Master Krell will be taking over Anakin's troops while Anakin heads back to Coruscant at the request of the Supreme Chancellor. Obviously, by this point in the video, we all know that Krell's gone rogue and is trying to actively sabotage the clone invasion, so it should come as no surprise that he's a massive prick to any clone that talks to him. You can tell he really cares for the troops when he denies them any rest after they just fought their way through some crazy resistance and hiked for 12 hours straight. He then reverts to calling the clones by their identification number instead of their nicknames, so you know he means business.
But, sir,
CT-7567, are you reading me?
To be honest though, I do like that while Krell may come off like a massive dick here, you can still make the argument that he's on the Republic's side. The first time you watch this, it really does just come off as a no bullshit, tough as nails general who's unwilling to rest until the job's finished. The first cracks really start to show when Rex approaches Krell with the means for a surgical, well-planned attack strategy on the city, only for Krell to overrule him in favor of an all-out frontal assault. This directly opposes Anakin's plans for several rapid strikes at different targets, and instead opts to let the threat know exactly where the clones are and engage them in a massive battle head-on, which will no doubt cause the 501st to endure heavy casualties. Naturally, the clones are pretty annoyed with this new plan, and rightfully so, considering they walk directly into a minefield like 30 seconds into the trek. Shortly after, they were engaged by Umbaran forces again, having to fight their way through stiff resistance that could have easily been avoided had they followed Anakin's original plan. At least we get to see what a badass Rex is in this moment. With the Umbarans advancing, Rex orders a retreat, saving what's left of the platoon after the massacre. Krell doesn't see it this way, and places all of the blame onto Rex, which prompts Fives to call out Krell directly.
General Krell, in case you haven't noticed, Captain Rex just saved this platoon. Surely you won't fail to recognize that.
God, I love that man. He's gotta be my favorite character in the Clone Wars. Anyway, Krell, realizing he's pushing almost out of character, backs off slightly just to keep his cover, but again, at the time, you think he's just realizing that he's in the wrong here. There's no time to think about that now though, we've got more Umbaran counterattacks. Like I said, The Umbara story arc is an all-timer, and personally one of my favorite story arcs in the entire show. I love how well they hide that Krell is sabotaging the war effort, and you get to see the clones more so as human beings with personalities rather than just another serial number. Season 5 is a roller coaster. It's got the highest highs and lowest lows in the show so far. It's not even an exaggeration either. Season 5 has multiple episodes above a 9.0, with 2 being 9.7s. It's a toss-up between episode 16's The Lawless and episode 20's The Wrong Jedi, both of which have an IMDb score of 9.7 out of 10. For the sake of this video though, I went with The Lawless for the IMDb best score since it has the most reviews at the time of writing the script. Now with that, The Wrong Jedi is actually my favorite episode of the season, so it all kinda works out. The Lawless is another installment in the Mandalore story arc. There isn't much backstory needed for this one, other than the fact that Maul has built up a crime syndicate and used them, along with the Death Watch, to overthrow Duchess Satine and take her prisoner, all in an attempt to lure Obi-Wan to Mandalore just to kill him. It's actually a brilliant plan that takes several episodes to set up. The main reason Maul chooses Mandalore is simple. Obi-Wan has a history with Duchess Satine, and he'd have to come alone, all since the Republican invasion would break treaties that have stood for hundreds of years. Anyway, on to the episode. Duchess is broken out of captivity about 30 seconds into the episode by her nephew and sister, who's also the de facto leader of a rebel branch of the Death Watch. They're spotted almost immediately, and we get a pretty cool jetpack fight between members of the Death Watch, until eventually their vehicle takes damage and is forced to crash land on a nearby platform. Just before she's recaptured though, Satine is able to get an emergency transmission to Obi-Wan. Mundi's bitch ass is here for some reason as well, but they just reiterate what I already told you. If the Republic interferes, it'll break a bunch of treaties and spark another war, forcing Obi-Wan to head to Mandalore alone. He borrows this piece of shit from Anakin and ends up tricking a member of the Death Watch into coming aboard, where he knocks the man out and takes his armor. I always love how several people see this happen, but they're in the business of minding their own business, so they just carry on as if nothing happened. Obi-Wan takes his shot at breaking Satine out, and it goes about as well as you'd expect.
Hey, you! Stop!
The two dip out back to Obi-Wan's ship, but they're under heavy fire from the Death Watch, resulting in the ship getting blown up and both Obi-Wan and Satine getting recaptured. Imagine if Maul just impaled him here instead of taking him prisoner. How much different do you think the world would have turned out? Just an all-time fuck up by Maul here. Anyway, it's time for the part that everyone's waiting for. Real quick, while we do a slow zoom on her face or something, we need to talk about how OP Obi-Wan is. The man is the embodiment of a Jedi golden child. Years ago, he would have left the Jedi Order just to be with Satine. She was the love of his life. So, throughout his life, he's watched his Jedi Master be stabbed in front of him. The love of his life is stabbed in front of him by the same guy. His best friend / brother turns to the dark side and he has to essentially kill him. He witnesses dead children at the hands of his best friend. His other close friend Padme dies in childbirth again in front of him. He figures out Anakin survived, became Darth Vader, and is responsible for slaughtering countless innocent lives. And during all of that, he never even considers turning to the dark side. What a legend. Got a little sidetracked there, but the point still stands. The man watches Duchess Satine, the love of his life, be executed by the same man that killed his Jedi Master. And instead of drowning in his own misery, giving in and glassing the planet, he just trusts in the Force more and manages to escape that same day with the help of Satine's sister, Bo-Katan. The final portion of this episode is entirely focused on Maul and Darth Sidious. He's come to destroy Maul and his brother / apprentice because he considers Maul to be a rival now. It's one of the better lightsaber duels in the show for sure, and even though you know Sidious wins in the end before the fight even starts, it's one where I still found myself rooting for Maul and Savage. Sidious is able to easily defeat the two, killing Savage and torturing Maul for the hell of it. He does say he's not going to kill Maul though, as he may have a use for him in the future, so obvious foreshadowing there. My first thought when I saw this was the worst episode was, they really made a 4-part story involving just droids? In my opinion, R2 works best as the comic relief badass side character. It's hard to watch a group of droids just drive around for 4 episodes straight, which, when you take out ads, is still 108 minutes or almost 2 hours of droid shenanigans that I do not have the patience or mental fortitude to sit through. So instead, welcome to the shittiest one of the season, episode 11's A Sunny Day in the Void. It's got a 6.1 out of 10 on IMDb. So, in the first portion, the droids successfully steal an encryption module. Now, they need to bring it back to the Jedi Temple. On the bright side, the prince from Princess and the Frog is here, so that's cool. He's cosplaying as a droid though, so it might as well just be a full-on group of droids.
At least you will have a good excuse if your mission is a failure.
Gonna be a long episode, folks. Oh my god. So while in hyperspace, the droids fly into a shit ton of ice comets that risk destroying the ship. Spoiler alert, they do. Mainly because all the droids just sit around doing absolutely nothing, while R2 does literally all of the work. The ship ends up crash landing on a nearby planet that has literally nothing on it. There's no info on the planet in R2's database either, so everyone's just kinda shit out of luck. R2 defies a direct order from the Colonel here and heads off into the void because he's R2, and I once again find myself asking, why? He's the most important droid in the galaxy at this point in the show, and he's carrying classified material not already in his database. What follows is, and I'm not kidding, almost 4 full minutes of the droids and Colonel walking around in the void, and then getting into a fight because they can't find their way back.
Maybe he is going to jump and put himself out of his misery.
Alright, that was a good one. We'll give him that. So the Colonel starts losing his mind on top of a ship before he begins hallucinating a village in the distance. And he only spirals from there until one of the droids calls him out. Eventually, they happen across this weird stampede of albino flamingos or something, and decide to ride them to where they're running to, only to come across a small town dug into the ground. But don't worry, because all the other droids are already there waiting for them, and that's how the episode ends. I'm not even kidding. They don't make it off the planet, they still have no clue where they are, but at least they're all together. Can you see why it's a 6.1? Don't worry, there's still 2 more episodes to go in that series arc. This entire episode was them walking in a straight line and then finding an abandoned town. That was it. I did take the time to check out some of the reviews, and it's bad. Most people gave it a 5 out of 10, and almost all of them make the same point. This is the worst arc in the series, it's entirely pointless, and this episode is the worst of the story arc, but the animation looks good. Except for this cuck who rated it a 10 out of 10 and called people brainless if they skip it. And this has to be rage bait, right? Like, very obvious rage bait on fucking IMDb, of all places. It's time for The Anomaly. An episode that breaks the mold of the trends that we've been picking up on for the last 5 seasons now. There is no major battle that takes place, no Force lore, but what there is a whole hell of a lot of character development. The Season 5 finale, The Wrong Jedi, is a near-perfect episode according to IMDb scores, with a 9.7 out of 10, and it's my personal favorite of the season, which should say something because, as we've established, I'm really just here for the cool cinematic shots. So here's the backstory. Back in episode 17, there's a bombing at the Jedi Temple. It turns out to be the wife of some random employee who feeds her husband nanodroids that explode in the hangar. But she's force choked to death in front of Ahsoka before revealing who helped orchestrate it. Seeing Ahsoka next to a dead prisoner, she's effectively framed for murder, placing the bombing on her as well. The Jedi refuse to protect her, and instead, actively begin hunting her to bring her in for trial. She manages to escape and continues her own investigation to clear her name, and everything comes to a head in episode 19, where she engages a cloaked figure who she believes to be Ventress, only to be knocked into a crate of nanodroids as clones storm the building. She's stunned and captured by those clones, setting up episode 20 to be the trial, while Anakin starts to believe that Ahsoka may just be innocent. This episode kicks off with the Senate pushing for an expedited trial before the Senate on grounds for treason. Yoda says she will have a Jedi trial, but the Senate pushes back that allowing the Jedi to run their own trial would be biased. The conclusion they come to is to expel Ahsoka from the Jedi Order so that she would be able to stand trial at a military tribunal. Oh look, Moonface Mundi once again saying the dumbest shit he can possibly think of in the moment.
And yet there's evidence that she is indeed the mastermind behind the attack on the temple.
I've never liked the guy, that's no secret, but as this show has progressed, it's only reaffirmed my hatred for him. He solely exists to destroy the Jedi Order, and I'm 100% positive of it. Is no one gonna talk about how fucking dope the chamber guards look? That's like a whole Destiny 2 fit right there. Anyway, Anakin goes with Ahsoka to the Chamber of Judgment, also known as Reddit, where all of the Jedi Council is waiting for them in these weird chairs that scream superiority complex. I like to think they just really like the way their voices sound here with the echo, so they decided to create a whole chamber in this room. Can someone please explain to me how a group of Jedi Masters can't sense that she's telling the truth here? I feel like I'm missing something, but to me, if they can tell when a Jedi's judgment is clouded or flawed or wavering, they should be able to tell the opposite, as in when she's lying or not, right? Anakin calls them out, and I love it because it really helps to show how flawed the Jedi are, and in turn, continues pushing Anakin towards the dark side. It really does seem like the Jedi fuck up at literally every turn when it comes to Anakin, and this is just another step in that direction as they bring him in just to expel Ahsoka from the Jedi Temple with inconclusive evidence, but under the guise of a trial, all directly in front of him. All this does is piss Anakin off and create more fractures in his trust with the Jedi Council. Now, luckily for Ahsoka, Anakin is the chosen one, so he can just do cool shit like have Padme represent her while he heads off to hunt down Ventress and discover who's truly behind this plot. We get a bit of dark side Anakin here, where he finds and engages Ventress, which honestly is very understandable given what the Jedi Order just put him and his Padawan through. Not to mention his best friend and mentor is on that console. But I always love when you get glimpses of Jedi starting to turn to the dark side, because, at least to me, being pissed off here and letting that influence your decisions is pretty reasonable, especially when you're fighting the person who you believe framed your best friend. Anyway, Anakin goes full dominatrix on Ventress, causing her to admit that she was only there to collect the bounty on Ahsoka, and didn't actually frame her.
And turn her over to the authorities. Collect whatever bounty was due.
She then goes on to say that the Jedi Order abandoned Ahsoka, which only helps solidify what Anakin was already thinking. Padme puts up a solid defense for Ahsoka in court, only for Admiral Tarkin to come strolling in and clap back as the prosecutor. I do really like the choice to have him in this trial, because we already know he has a strong distaste for the Jedi, so it allows his character to progress a bit more into that adversary role, without crossing the line entirely. What's coming up is one of my favorite parts of the episode. Anakin approaches Barriss, Ahsoka's longtime friend and Padawan to Master Luminara. She asks how Anakin found out that she spoke to Ahsoka about a clue, only for him to reveal that Ventress gave him the information. What an absolute power play. So, if you missed it, he takes her lightsaber when he enters the room, and then goes to swing at her with no real intention to kill her, but instead successfully baits her into pulling out Ventress's lightsabers, which were taken from her earlier in the arc. All Barriss needed to do here was stand still and she would have gotten away with it. Instead, she bites, and we get another awesome duel. Throughout the fight, Barriss makes a few claims about the Jedi Council having lost their way, and she's not entirely wrong, which is the crazy part. She talks about how, for an order so set on keeping the peace, they only seem to care about commanding armies and causing violence. This might be my favorite duel in the entire show, and it goes on for a solid 5 or 6 minutes. There's this really cool shot that I love where you see a bunch of Jedi children training with their lightsabers, and they look up to see Anakin and Barriss duking it out on the temple above them. Once again, more darkside Anakin, and I want more. It's Mace Windu vibes through and through, and I wish there was more of this throughout the show, because it's very rare that we get to see Anakin's raw, unchecked power. Just before the court is able to deliver on their verdict, The Chosen One himself saves the day yet again. Barriss confesses to everything, stating that her reasoning is that the Jedi are responsible for this war and are actually the villains in this conflict instead of keepers of the peace. Again, not entirely wrong here. Not looking too good for the Jedi Council either, considering they were ready to throw one of their Padawans under the bus just to appease the Senate.
You have our most humble apologies, little Ahsoka.
Honestly, fuck the Council, Obi-Wan included, at least in this instance. Imagine a Jedi Council wanting to convict you for treason on crimes you didn't commit. They strip you from your status and bar you from the Order, only to turn around and go, sorry, our bad. Wanna be a Jedi Knight? Mace Windu tries to save face here by saying, this was actually your trial. Got ya. And I now suddenly realize why we all played as the dark side on KOTOR and KOTOR 2. Ahsoka sees right through this bullshit and instead of rejoining the Order, decides to leave. Back when this first aired, this was fucking massive. I wasn't even a fan of the show at that point, but I still remember that this scene practically broke Twitter for an entire weekend. It's easily one of the best episodes in not just the Clone Wars, but honestly, it's gotta be one of the best episodes in all of television. It's 5 full seasons, over 100 episodes of build-up, getting to know and relate to the characters, seeing them grow and improve on themselves, then having everything they've trusted and believed in turned against them in a moment's notice, only for her to take the more difficult path and do what's best for her instead of continuing to let the Jedi screw things up. Ahsoka chooses to leave the Jedi Order permanently, which not only sets her off on her own journey as a character, but continues to destroy the trust that Anakin has in the Jedi Order himself. He even lets it slip that he's thought about walking away from the Order, to which Ahsoka hits him with,
I know,
before walking away one last time. Again, just an all-time masterpiece of an episode. There's so much character development that's built off of this, so much build-up that all comes together here, and it just hits the marker perfectly. Season 6. How will they continue Ahsoka's story? How will the war effort be impacted? Will there be more Jar Jar? Well, buckle up, because there's a whole lot of Force shit in this one. Episode 13's Sacrifice is the highest rated episode of the season, with a 9.2 out of 10. It's the season finale and story arc finale for Yoda becoming a schizophrenic. It's a bit convoluted, so I'll do my best to explain. Yoda hears the voice of Qui-Gon Jinn, so he heads off in search of answers, eventually finding himself in front of 5 priestesses who are gonna make him trip his balls off in an attempt to talk to the dead. He completes a ton of trials before heading to the home planet of the Sith to face his final trial and uncover some hidden secrets about the Sith and how they plan to control the galaxy. He brings R2 with him, but just has him stay back and guard the ship, which, I don't know how many times I have to say this, he's the most important droid in the galaxy. Stop leaving him on the fucking ship on hostile planets. That night, Yoda sits down and tries to meditate, only to end up seeing the spirits of all these ancient Sith Lords who encircle him. At least, I think they're the spirits of all these ancient Sith Lords. They might just be ghosts. After warding them off, Yoda heads inside where he comes face to face with the soul of Darth Bane. Every time I see a Sith Lord, I'm enamored by how edgy they look, but also, like, I want that. You know what I mean? Like, this is how all of my MMO characters end up looking when I binge the games for like a week every other year. He's the Sith who created the rule of 2 all those years ago. Bane explains it all here if you're interested, but otherwise let's keep it moving.
So resilient that now you come before me. Have you come to be my apprentice? You must kill me to gain my place.
Yoda, being practically a god himself, simply shrugs off Darth Bane before heading underneath his tomb. While all of that's going on, Dooku flies back to Coruscant to meet with Sidious, where the two formulate a plan to attack the Jedi Order. Back beneath the tomb, Yoda finds the 5 priestesses again, who warn him that they have no control over this final trial. He's about to enter a chamber where Sith Lords used to sacrifice Jedi, essentially the biggest hotbed of darkness in the galaxy. Back to Dooku and Sidious. They begin a ritual to use the bond between Dooku and Yoda to see what he's doing on the Sith planet. As Yoda enters, he finds Sifo Dyas, the Jedi who commissioned the clone army all those years ago, and close friend to Dooku. He tempts Yoda, saying that if he's freed, he can tell Yoda who the real Sith Lord is, and answer all of these questions, only for Yoda to turn him down, realizing that he's only a temptation of the dark side. Sifo-Dyas is replaced by Sidious, causing Yoda to enter a state of meditation and reappear in a gunship with Anakin and a group of clones, all en route to capture Dooku. To me, it's pretty obvious that this is a vision because of the dark approach that Yoda takes here. He straight up tells the clones and Anakin that they are to execute Dooku and the Sith Lords instead of allowing them to escape. It's just not something Yoda would ever say. As the group storms the facility, they find and engage Dooku with Anakin pulling off a move we're all too familiar with. Yoda witnesses Anakin behead Dooku before continuing to chase Sidious out onto a catwalk and finally engaging him in another awesome duel. Anakin meets up with Yoda, and the two continue attacking Sidious before Anakin is thrown aside, and we get another familiar scene where Yoda catches Force Lightning and uses that energy to blast Sidious over the edge of the catwalk. While Anakin is unconscious, Yoda has to choose between saving him and saving himself by continuing to fight against the Sith Lord. It's some pretty excellent writing, because not only do you get to see some insane foreshadowing and imagery, but how about the fact that the entire duel is one giant metaphor for the light and dark side battling for control over Anakin, with Yoda embodying the light side and Sidious obviously portraying the dark side. Honestly, I was expecting for Yoda to let him fall to his death here, showing how the Jedi are willing to sacrifice the Chosen One for their own survival. But instead, he puts his lightsaber away and endures a blast of Sidious's infamous Force Lightning, all in order to save Anakin's life. He even goes one step further here and destroys the catwalk the two are on, opting to sacrifice himself in an effort to destroy the Sith. Sure, it was all once again a vision in an attempt to break Yoda, but that should have been obvious given that he's undergoing the final trial. Having successfully fought off the dark side's temptations, Yoda passes his final test and is able to begin training under Qui-Gon's guidance to maintain his consciousness after death. Back at the Jedi Temple, Yoda chooses to lie to Mace Windu and Obi-Wan about what he's uncovered, which is certainly a strange choice, but I suppose it's probably a better option than telling every single Jedi that they can effectively become gods after death. It's time to talk about the lowest rated episode in the season, along with my personal least favorite. The Disappeared, Part 1 and 2. It just happened to work out like that. While IMDb's lowest scored episode is Part 1, my least favorite is Part 2, so let's just take a few minutes to shit on the 2-episode story arc as a whole. On the surface, you're getting a Mace Windu-centered story. In reality, it's so much worse. Part 1, there's this peaceful sanctuary on the planet of Bardota, but all of their spiritual leaders are beginning to go missing. Instead of handling the issue themselves, the Queen calls the Republic's Senate and asks for help. She says there's only one person that she's willing to meet with, which sounds like a pretty big ask, especially considering they're a neutral planet and already begging the Senate for help. It seems like it should be much more of a "you'll take what we give you" approach, instead of "oh yes, pick and choose exactly what you would like from us." Naturally, she chooses fucking Jar Jar Binks. Yoda explains why the leaders are so important, and why the audience should care about them.
A strong connection to the Force. The Dragoian Masters have.
As it turns out, the locals actually consider the Jedi to be thieves and kidnappers, since they were seen as people who took their Force-sensitive children against their will. So in place of a Jedi, the Queen wants Jar Jar Binks to come alone to Bardota.
I think that course of action is unwise.
Yeah, you and me both, dude. The Council decides to send Mace Windu along with Jar Jar. Why does the Queen want Jar Jar, though? Well, as it turns out, she's actually known him for a long time. Doesn't make much sense, if any sense, when you think about the prequels and the fact that Jar Jar spent most of his life underwater with the Gungans, and when he wasn't there, he was with the Senate, but fuck it. We need a Jar Jar episode, the children yearn for it.
And Hisa with Misa.
If this is how he talks the entire episode, I'm gonna climb into an oven. When the two approach the Queen, they played off that Windu was just Jar Jar's servant.
Yes, that is the truth. Master in Mace is Misa humble servant.
You know when you catch yourself constantly rubbing your face when you have to listen to shit you don't want to listen to? I've caught myself doing that 6 different times so far, and we're 5 minutes into part 1. You're telling me, with a straight face, that Jar Jar's out here clapping royalty cheeks, and I'm just supposed to accept that?
There is a great disturbance in the Force here.
Yeah, Windu, we just watched Jar Jar make out with the Queen. We're all disturbed right now. Alright, so what is Mace Windu's plan here? He knows the locals hate him and what he represents. He knows that all of them are at least partially Force sensitive, and his solution is a Jedi mind trick? And when that doesn't work, he just makes them more suspicious by running away and baiting them out? All he does here is intrude on the Queen and Jar Jar right before she lets Binks know what she's uncovered. Also, why do the guards have an off-brand Indian accent?
Contact me if you learn anything useful.
Am I the only person who sees the two guards standing right behind them? Did they not hear any of this conversation? I mean, for fuck's sake, Jar Jar screamed half of his responses. Immediately after this, we're told that the Queen has now gone missing as well, prompting Jar Jar and Mace Windu to head to an ancient shrine buried beneath their new temple. They're separated almost immediately, and Jar Jar is captured and taken to this whole underground prison, where he finds the other leaders all waiting to be sacrificed. Unfortunately, Windu pops up just in time to save Jar Jar, and the two escape after witnessing the Queen being taken off the planet. So those dudes hanging out underground are actually members of a cult, and are using the life essence of Force-sensitive leaders to appease their god. Which brings us to part 2. I do appreciate that the locals don't even know what to call their own planet. They constantly flip between Bardata and Bardota. Anyway, the cult's master plan is to sacrifice the Queen and give her life force to the Great Mother, who will then deal with the Jedi. Mace sends Jar Jar in to rescue the Queen while he deals with the guards, who he takes on in hand-to-hand combat because he's a badass, but it does beg the question, why are the guards outside using medieval weapons, while the members inside are using fucking machine guns? The majority of this episode is just one giant chase scene. I wish I was kidding, but this whole chase starts about 4 minutes into the episode, and doesn't stop till almost 13 minutes in. And even then, it's just to show that Mother is just that Night Sister witch from Ventress's home planet, and that she's back and up to no good. As it turns out, she's the Great Mother. I was so shocked that my jaw stayed exactly in the same place. She gives a 3-minute exposition dump about why she's there and why she needs the Bardotan people, because she's not an actual Force wielder and instead relies on dark magic. But if they sacrifice Force-sensitive people, then she too can become one of the cool kids. And the entire time, I'm just left wondering, how the fuck does this relate to the Clone Wars? She attacks Mace and Jar Jar, and I can't help but notice that her kit is on par with like any other boss you'd fit into an RPG dungeon. Anyway, Jar Jar saves the Queen, the Night Sister witch lady dissipates into a giant fart cloud, and Bardota is saved. After watching 2 episodes of straight diarrhea, it's time for my personal favorite. Episode 4's Orders. It's the finale of the Inhibitor Chip Conspiracy arc. I'll let the narrator explain. Hold on.
Clone Crisis. After the mysterious death of his friend Tup, ARC Trooper Fives embarked on an investigation, which led to the discovery of a hidden chip, which is placed inside clone troopers when they are still embryos. The Kaminoan scientist Nala Se claims the chip is harmless and is meant to restrain the clones from violent, unpredictable action. Fives claims otherwise, and has convinced Jedi Master Shakti to allow him to plead his case directly to Supreme Chancellor Palpatine.
You see, the only problem with pleading your case to the Supreme Chancellor is that he's the one orchestrating everything. While en route, a Kaminoan drugs Fives to make him seem more aggressive and paranoid. Everyone meets inside this creepy-ass chamber, and after showing the inhibitor chips, the Kaminoan says that they're just placed in clones to make them less aggressive and more compliant to orders, which I guess is partially true. Fives pleads his case that the chips are the cause of the problems in the clones, and that Tup's brain showed rapid decay after the chip malfunctioned. The Kaminoan plays on the idea that because Fives has already removed his own inhibitor chip, he's now a greater risk to himself and everyone around him, which is why he was restrained at the beginning of the episode.
And I discussed this without your presence.
Chancellor, I must object.
Please, Master Jedi, trust me. I will not be alone. I have my security here. I want this soldier to feel
he is having a fair say in this matter.
Listen, I know he's evil, but you gotta admit he plays this part so well. While waiting outside, Shakti and the guards hear Palpatine struggling, along with shots raining out. They rush in to see Fives taking out the guards and pointing his gun at the Chancellor, seemingly having uncovered the plot. Shakti saves the Chancellor, but Fives is able to escape. Back at the temple, the Jedi Council and Anakin discuss the matter, coming to the agreement that it's very odd that a Jedi presence has not been requested in the manhunt or with defending the Chancellor. It's obvious to the audience, though, that Sidious can't risk the Jedi uncovering the truth of the matter before Order 66 is issued. Anakin takes charge of the private Jedi-led investigation, with the Council wanting Fives taken alive. He's tracked to a clone bar where he notices that the 501st has been discreetly shipped back to Coruscant. He pleads his case to another soldier in the bathroom, saying he needs to talk to Rex or Anakin, and that if he turns himself in, he'll be killed on the spot. He manages to steal a speeder and escape capture again, but is chased by a recon drone without him knowing. Anakin and Rex do arrive at the coordinates Five gave the other clone, and end up locating Fives before being trapped in a ray shield. He does try his best to communicate the conspiracy theory to Anakin and Rex, but comes off as a completely psychotic human. Honestly, if I was in Anakin or Rex's shoes, I wouldn't believe him either. While all of this is going on though, the clones have secretly been alerted by that recon drone who had followed Fives here in the first place, and are making their way into the facility. All the tension comes to a head at this one moment, and...
No, stay back! Don't do it, soldier! Get away from me! No!
This scene always gets me a little bit because Fives is my favorite character in the Clone Wars, and he goes out so sad. I always thought he'd get gunned down or have some heroic sacrifice, but instead, he's labeled as insane due to a brain virus and is shot by the very people he was trying so desperately to save. In his own words,
I only wanted to do my duty.
Back in the Senate, the Chancellor tells the Jedi that they found a parasite on both of the clone bodies, which is an obvious lie, but the Jedi buy it nonetheless. Well, we've made it to the final season. On paper, it's the best season in the show's catalog, with the final 4 episodes all coming in between 9.7s and 9.9s on IMDb. There's one thing you gotta give the producers credit for. They knew how to end the Clone Wars TV show with 4 masterclass episodes. Unfortunately, I don't get to talk much about the Bad Batch in this video, so I just wanted to say that I think they're absolute badasses, and it makes me sad that I won't get to cover them in depth here. Who knows though, maybe in another video. To keep everything nice and neat, I'm going to start with the lowest rated IMDb score and my personal least favorite episode, then onto my personal favorite, before ending with the IMDb best. You'll see why when I get to it, but I promise it'll all make sense. Kicking things off in reverse order, we have Deal No Deal, with a 6.1 out of 10 on IMDb. Somehow, even in their final season, they managed to squeeze in one last stinker of an episode. It takes place in the middle of Ahsoka's story arc in the underworld. So far, she's met up with a pair of sisters while she continues to hide the fact that she's a Jedi. So the oldest sister was going to do a job, but the original pilot backed out and took their ship with them, meaning she's back to pulling her sister into the shit show. I think the biggest issue I have with this episode is that I just don't care. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Ahsoka, but knowing what all went down in Season 6, and what's on the horizon coming up for the remainder of Season 7, I don't really care about 2 drug-peddling sisters. No, I forgot to mention, that's the job. The trio are drug-peddling for the Pike Syndicate. If the name sounds familiar, it's because they're one of the crime groups that teamed up with Maul to help the Death Watch take Mandalore back in the day. Obviously, this raises some moral issues when the trio look down to see that these spice mines are all operated by droids and slaves. This is just a me thing, but I hate tropes like this, where main characters have knowledge, but have to navigate situations where they can't explain why they have the info they do, because it'll risk outing them, but also, why are you even caring about the fact that you're a former Jedi? Who gives a shit? I don't know, I just find this kind of stuff to be a bit annoying, especially because it's always sparked by an arrogant leader who doesn't understand what they get themselves into until it's too late, which is exactly what they're setting up the two sisters to be. Anyway, one of the sisters dumps 30,000 credits worth of spice that was en route to the Pike Syndicate, but Ahsoka uses a Jedi mind trick to convince the Pikes to give them the 30 credits anyway. But before they leave, the Syndicate figures out they've been duped and are able to cut the ship off before it escapes. When I tell you that a good 2/3 of this episode is the three of them just sitting in the cockpit of a plane arguing about what to do, it should be no secret that this comes out to a score of 6.1, matching the lowest score of the entire series. Let's end on a high note though, shall we? Episode 11's Shattered is my personal favorite of the final season, but I could also say the same for Victory and Death, which is the IMDb best. To me, they're both interchangeable and should be viewed as one big special episode. Shattered has a 9.8 score on IMDb, making it the second highest score of the show. It's the third part of this finale, and to set the stage, Ahsoka, along with a small detachment of the 501st led by Captain Rex, have helped Bo-Katan siege Mandalore and have just captured Maul. The episode picks up as the remaining members of Death Watch are being arrested. Bo-Katan assumes rule over Mandalore, avenging her sister Duchess Satine, and Maul is handed over to the clones, with Ahsoka assisting Rex in handing Maul over to the Senate. The timeline lines up with the events of Revenge of the Sith. To be more specific, it tags on with the Jedi Council's attempt to arrest Chancellor Palpatine. We even get an animated version of them discussing the matter on board the ship. Since she's no longer part of the Jedi Order, she holds back on telling the Jedi Masters what Maul told her, that Anakin will become a Sith Lord and destroy the Republic and Jedi Order. Even Rex is a bit surprised here, but given how they treated her when she was on trial, it makes sense that she'd want to be the one to talk to Anakin about it herself. Speaking of Maul, he's kept in this giant Mandalorian box that was used to hold imprisoned Jedi in the past. According to Bo-Katan, this is the only remaining cell of this kind, which explains why he's effectively powerless to escape. While en route, there's a heart-to-heart moment between Ahsoka and Rex, where Rex expresses his concerns for the war ending. It's a really touching moment here, where he talks about how most people hate the war and wish it never happened, but if that were the case, Rex and all of the other clones would never have existed, prompting Ahsoka to say,
"Well, then perhaps some good has come from all of it. The Republic couldn't have asked for better soldiers, nor I, a better friend."
Rex then leaves to hear an update from the Chancellor, and while he's gone, Ahsoka and Maul begin to feel the gravity of the situation currently unfolding across the galaxy, as several Jedi Masters are killed, Anakin completes his transition to the dark side, and countless Jedi begin to be slain. I love that they splice in some dialogue from Revenge of the Sith, like Sidious screaming. Order 66 is officially underway, but Rex, showing some insane restraint, manages to withhold shooting Ahsoka, buying her enough time to realize that something is up, before pulling off the sickest move of the series. Quick fun fact here, this is the exact same move that Anakin teaches her while she's a Padawan. I couldn't find the exact scene for it, but I believe it's either in the very beginning back in Season 1, or in Tales of the Jedi. But it's this move right here. God, she's so fucking awesome, dude. Anyway, Rex gives a quick breakdown for anyone watching the show who hasn't seen Revenge of the Sith, before ordering the rest of the clones to begin sweeping throughout the ship in search of Ahsoka. Speaking of Miss Tano, she's able to save Maul just before he's executed, but instead of working with him, she uses him as a distraction to help her escape. With the clones now on high alert, Ahsoka manages to sneak into the droid charging area and learns the truth about what happened to Fives, after Rex mentioned his name while resisting the chip initially. While the report officially states that Five was killed due to a malfunction in his chip, Rex files a grievance report expressing massive concerns over the chip and how he thinks Fives was actually onto something. This, along with what Maul said about using their own armies against the Jedi, leads Ahsoka to the conclusion that the clones are being controlled to execute any Jedi they come across. We get a few more shots of Maul being Maul, which makes me wish we got at least one scene of him and Ahsoka working together here, But either way, it's just really cool to watch him kick some ass with nothing but the panels that he's currently ripping off the walls. While that's going on, Ahsoka uses the droids to trap Rex, cutting him off from the rest of the clones, during which she manages to incapacitate him. Once captured, Ahsoka takes Rex to the medbay and tasks the droids with removing his inhibitor chip. They're taking their sweet time though, causing the clones to break through the doors and engage Ahsoka. Just before she's killed though, a series of shots ring out behind her, and she turns around to see Rex holding his pistols, having just saved her life. With his chip removed, he confirms Ahsoka's worst fears.
Ahsoka, it's all of us. The entire Grand Army of the Republic has been ordered to hunt down and destroy the Jedi Knights.
This brings us to the series finale, Episode 12's Victory and Death, with a whopping 9.9 out of 10 on IMDb. Simply put, it's regarded as the best episode in the entire series. There's no amount of droids or Jar Jar centered plots that will ever take away from the first time I watched this finale. It's just that good. Victory and Death picks up immediately where Shattered left off. Rex, Ahsoka, and a ragtag group of astromech droids against an entire Star Destroyer of clones. Oh, and Maul. Something that immediately sets Ahsoka apart from the rest of the Jedi is that she's not trying to kill any of the clones, even instructing Rex to set his blasters to stun. It's an odd choice considering it's life or death here, but from her perspective, her friends and closest allies are being controlled against their will as mindless drones. Like I said, guys, she's not trying to kill anyone, or so she says. Just tell that to the clone who just had every bone in his body shattered. The two fight shoulder to shoulder as R7 and the other droids create a path for the group to navigate through. All of the escape pods have been destroyed by this point, so they need to head to the hangar and steal a ship. While that's going on, Maul sprints into the hyperdrive room and kicks some more ass before using his force powers to destroy the hyperdrive from the inside, causing the ship to begin imploding. It's a truly beautiful scene to watch and one of the best sequences in the show in my opinion. Ahsoka and Rex end up reaching the hangar bay and begin unlocking the doors, only to find an entire battalion of clones waiting for them, all led by Jesse. Realizing they're trapped, Ahsoka contemplates giving up, and I kinda agree with Rex here.
I hate to tell you this, but they don't care.
As they think about their next move, Ahsoka realizes that the clones are standing directly on top of the lifts. Together, her and Rex create a diversion by pretending that Rex is turning Ahsoka in, which gives the droids time to get into position. Rex tries to get around Order 66 by saying that the order was to execute all the Jedi, and Ahsoka technically isn't a Jedi anymore, but no one's buying a technicality as an excuse, so instead, we get this.
Now!
Maul arrives while all of this is going down and makes a mad dash to the shuttle, stealing it from underneath Rex and Ahsoka. She tries to stop him, but realizes it's futile and lets go, opting to find another way off the Star Destroyer. So by this point in the attack, Rex and Ahsoka have both been shot several times, with Rex taking multiple bolts, which you can see in his armor. The droids once again save the day by raising the platforms, launching dozens of clones back into the main hangar floor, before being executed firing squad style. By this point, the Star Destroyer is in freefall, but the duo manage to find one last flyable ship. Ahsoka takes another bolt while defending Rex, but is saved when the ship snaps in half like the Titanic. Rex is able to take off as Ahsoka begins free-falling out of the ship, but manages to rescue her while the destroyer plummets to the moon beneath them. As the two sole survivors, they begin going through the wreckage of the Star Destroyer and burying all of the recovered clones. I wish we could play the score in the background here because it's one of the most beautiful songs in all of Star Wars and perfectly captures what every fan of the series is going through while the shot pans out of Ahsoka staring at the graves of soldiers that she'd long considered to be her friends. She decides to leave her lightsabers behind next to the graves, giving the illusion that she was killed alongside them. Sometime later, an Empire shuttle lands on the moon where a search party of stormtroopers is scavenging the remains. But they're not alone. Vader walks up to the wreckage, bends down, and picks up Ahsoka's lightsaber before walking away. The final shot pans in on a clone's destroyed helmet that belonged to one of the clones from the siege on Mandalore years ago, all as Vader walks off into the distance. What an amazing show, truly. It's got the highest highs of any show I've ever sat down and thoroughly watched, while also having some of the shittiest episodes I've ever seen. It really is a roller coaster ride throughout. Each season will have one of the best pieces of entertainment I've ever watched, while simultaneously having something that they'd likely use to torture prisoners with in Guantanamo Bay. Either way, I loved the Clone Wars. Like I said, Star Wars has been a massive part of my life growing up, especially as a kid, so getting to watch this show with the context of having seen all of the movies was really special to me. It also made me really excited to go watch Rebels and Bad Batch, two other Disney shows that I've heard good things about but haven't had time to sit down and check out for myself yet. With that being said, I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you all for watching, I appreciate you all, and until next time, thanks for stopping by.